A lot of people want to get started in real estate but have no idea where to start. This video is for you if you've been interested in real estate for some time but you have not been able to get going. I'm going to walk you through the exact sequence I would follow if I was starting from scratch again today while working my 9 to 5. Your analysis paralysis ends today. So the first thing you have to do is get your money right. It's not complicated. It's not glamorous. The very first thing you have to do is come up with the money to get started in real estate. And for a lot of people, that's where they stall. So, a couple of things you can do. You can either make more money at work. You can work multiple jobs, regardless of whether you're working a corporate job and a side hustle or working multiple corporate jobs, whatever you need to do. You can use your bonuses. You can use tax returns. You can start a side business with the sole purpose of stashing all of that money away. You can lower your living expenses so that you have some margin to play with. Because the reality is that you need to create a situation where you have extra income every month. And that's whether you're changing your lifestyle so that the one paycheck that you do have is enough to cover it. So, in short, you have to build your reserves, you have to build your savings, you have to increase your income. And I do have a product to help you see that picture clearly. It's called the Cash Kit. I'll drop a link in the description. But those are the three things you have to do. And I think your goal should be to get started. It should be 40 to 50,000. I'm not a fan of no money down or any of these creative ways that people want you to get into real estate because the reality is that it's very expensive to be a real estate investor. You have things break all the time. People don't pay their rent on time, or sometimes they don't pay at all. So you have to be in a financial position where you can cover that. And so it's just not responsible for you to think that $5 or $10,000 is going to do it. The exception is if you are house hacking and you want to start your first rental, it's going to be somewhere you're also going to live, then that's the cheat code because now you would have had to come up with that deposit anyway, and it's a lot less than you'll need being a flat out investor. So you'll just need whatever down payment you would have needed to buy your house, and maybe that's 5%, maybe that's 3.5, maybe it's 10. It's less than 20. So with the rental property, you'll need at least 20%. The key here is that if you want to get into real estate, the journey starts well before buying the first property. The journey starts at the moment where you look at your finances and figure out how you can even make this possible. The second thing I would do is pick my market. And I know there's a lot of information on the internet about being a long distance investor and looking all over the country, but I don't subscribe to that. I think you have to invest where you have competitive advantage. Who do you have on the ground who can help you? Are you there physically? Is there a city that you know like the back of your hand where you have other resources, maintenance men, where you have the ability to take advantage of other resources outside of just having the property there? You need to have trusted people, and having access to your property matters. So if you live on the East Coast and your property is on the West Coast, and you don't have anybody trusted there, and it's going to take you a 4 hour flight to get there, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so I would stop looking everywhere and I would start looking at what locations, what markets do I already have a connection to? And I would start there. If you're living in a very expensive place and you can't afford rental property there, maybe buying in your backyard is not exactly what you're going to be able to do, but look in the close surrounding areas. Maybe there's a suburb or, a place that's an hour away from where you are that can allow you to have that access that you need. The key here is picking the market before you start looking for properties. So after you know your market, then you can determine what kind of properties you're going to choose. And you need to go in that order because if you have already told yourself that you want to do multifamily, it kind of negates the point if you're looking in an area where there are no multifamilies. So you kind of need to pick your market, know what's there. Once you know what market you're in, you can see what does the single family residence look like? What does the multifamily residence look like? And you can start making your decision based on what's already in the area versus looking for a diamond in the rough or a needle in a haystack that simply doesn't exist in your market. So when it comes to single family, the thing I've observed in my opinion is that you do seem to get better tenants. They seem to stay longer. and it's a simpler operation because you can push off a lot of the operations of the property onto the tenant because you can basically create your lease and set it up so that it's like their home and that they only need to call you for emergencies and things like that. Versus when you do multifamily, because you have, say, four different people living there, it's very hard to get them to agree, operate on one accord, and work together as a unit. So you can't expect them to treat it like their home because disputes arise. Who's going to take out the trash? Who's going to cut the grass? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And so, as the owner, you end up owning all of that when it's multifamily. That's one thing to consider. It's more complex because you're basically running a dorm. You have different personalities, different people who don't know each other, don't like each other, and you're trying to make this whole thing work. So, and I think the profile, I don't want to go too in depth here, but and it seems that you're at a greater risk for people staying shorter term in the multifamily setup. I'll get more in detail with that later on a different video, but the point is you can't decide you want to do multifamily before you know if the area that you're going to invest in has that for you to invest in. The next thing you need to consider is building your team. Right now on my team, I have legal support. I have a contractor who specifically does turnovers when apartments become vacant. I have other contractors who do maintenance. I have a maintenance manager. Those are all the people that you will need on the ground. That's what allows you to not have to respond to every tenant request or to be somewhat of a remote investor is because you do have someone maintaining all of those things. And so you could be a one person team. And if your rental property is around the corner from where you live, you can do all of that if you're handy, et cetera, et cetera. But for most investors, they need a team to do that for them. And so those are the must haves. The nice to haves are the bookkeeper, the back end support, somebody to help you with your applications and get your systems up and running. And then for leasing support, these are all things that you can literally do from your desk at home. But again, you can outsource those as your portfolio grows bigger and bigger. But what I want to make clear that you absolutely do not need. You don't need an office. You don't need a website. You don't need a receptionist. For a receptionist, I actually created an AI agent for that. And I use between my property management software and my AI agent, I don't need a physical person able to respond to people. In terms of website, I think it depends on your market and it depends on, what you're doing. If you're doing single families, you don't need a website. And even me for multifamilies, I still don't have a website because people don't really go to your website. They don't really have a reason to unless you are presenting yourself as a property manager who wants to offer your services. And I'm not offering any services. I'm simply offering apartments. So, for all intents and purposes, Zillow acts as my forward facing website. That's where all my listings are. It has all my information. That's how you reach me. And then we just communicate with people on the back end. So, I mean, I think if you grow to a place where you're trying to either serve other property managers or get investments, attract other investors to give you money or participate in your portfolio, outside of that, you don't need a website. Your tenants don't really care. They just need a way to communicate with you, and the tenant portal resolves that issue. You definitely don't need an office for all the reasons I just said. You have your team. Now you need to start building your back end operations. And don't be like me. Don't wait until you are years into the thing to start building a system, building a thing that can start working for you. I would start with that very early on. And so, what property management software are you going to use? How are you going to communicate with both your tenants and your maintenance staff? Are you going to have a weekly meeting? I have a weekly meeting with my team so that I can stay on task and stay up to date with what's going on. And I do the weekly meeting because I don't want people calling me all day. I don't want people texting and doing all this all day. They know that there is a block of time where they can get my undivided attention. And so everything can wait until then. And then what is your maintenance process? What is the process from something breaking to something getting fixed? What is the communication? What is the time lag? One thing I just put into place right now is the operation for when an apartment becomes vacant. So I had to get very strict in terms of like the day the person moves out is the day we do the inspection. Within 7 days, we have a contractor in there. Within 14 days, we have it ready to turn around. And between day 14 and 21, I want to be accepting applications and doing showings. And so without that level of detail, things just draw on. And it could be before you know it, 2, 3 months have gone by and you're still trying to fill this apartment. So the key is that even if you only have one property, you need to consider these things. I think if you only have one property, there's no point in getting a property manager because you actually need to be able to understand the process. Once you understand the process, then you can hand it off to somebody and now you can supervise them, but you can't supervise them and know if they're doing things the right way or doing things according to your strategy if you've never done it yourself. So I would actually start without a property manager and so if you do that, you won't fall victim and fall prey to property managers just doing whatever they want to do because you've actually done it yourself and you're like, no, you're you're not gonna pull a fast one over on me. So I recommend that. And then finally, after those 5 steps have all been completed, now you're ready to buy your property because you know where, you know how, you know who, and now all you have to do is source the what. And so you know exactly what you're looking for. If you've gone through the cash kit, you know what you can afford, you know what cash flow you're looking for, you know how to estimate your expenses, you know everything. So when that property pops up on Zillow or your agent sends you, you know, listings or you get a recommendation from someone you know, an off-market deal, you are ready to pull the trigger because you've already done all the research. What I see right now is a lot of people looking for properties before they have all that other stuff in place. And it's really a waste of time because you have no idea what you're looking for. And that's how you end up buying the wrong thing. The other benefit to having all those other questions and the groundwork laid out is that you're not overthinking. You know exactly when it's time to pull the trigger. And you're also aware that there are some things that you just won't know. I've shared many times that experience is the best teacher. A lot of things you will not learn until you actually pull the trigger and buy the property because people on the internet can tell you anything about what it's like to manage a property, but you need to know what it's like to manage your property. We don't know what city it's in. We don't know what kind of tenants you're dealing with. We don't know. Maybe you are dealing with a very tough city or state that has different rules. Like what I can get away with, you might not be able to get away with. And so you got to pull the trigger so you can learn what works in the market that you're in. And I think it's important to understand that your first property, it won't make you wealthy. It will make you very smart. It will make you very experienced. And so those next moves that you make, that's where you're gonna make your money. That's where you're gonna get your cash flow. And that's where you're gonna reap the benefits of doing all of that groundwork ahead of time. And remember those first properties, they are designed simply to teach you how the game works. What most people get wrong, myself included, is I started scaling before I really had a handle on the systems. I had everything else figured out, but I didn't realize how fragile my systems were, and scaling was the only thing that started to expose that. So, some things I would not do. I would not focus on scaling without systems. I would not focus on properties without markets, and I would not focus on the deals without having my personal finances in order, having the income, knowing where the money's coming from, knowing if I have an emergency or I need cash reserves, where am I going to get that money from? You cannot hope and pray and hope it works out in that regard. You cannot expect for the property to pay for itself either. That's a gamble because there could be an expense that is simply bigger than your monthly rent roll. Like, what are you going to do if something like that happens? And so I'm not saying this for you to be afraid or for you not to get involved or for you to continue to sit on the sidelines. I'm sharing this because once you know it exists, you're not going to be caught off guard when it happens and you're going to be able to launch into action and start looking for a solution. And so today I just wanted to cover the basics, the high level of of what the steps are if you want to get involved in buying rental real estate. If you want a more technical explanation of the exact systems you need to set up, all of that, I will do a special episode for the cash crew on that, going through my entire stack. However, what's important is to walk through step by step. Do not rush. Do not feel like you're up against the clock. Take your time. They always say that you make your money on the purchase. So the last thing you want to do is haphazardly make a purchase just to get in the game. At least have considered all of these things. I hope I'm saving someone from some headaches and heartaches by providing the process that I would walk through if I had to start again today. My name is Jerry, and if you're still here, do me a favor, go ahead and give that like button a smash. Keep building that confidence and keep building that cash. I make videos for ambitious people who want to live life on their terms, and then you can get a behind the scenes look at my businesses over on Substack at Confidence is Cash. And if you're ready to move from watching content to taking action, there's a link in the description to the free action steps and playbook that I create for every single episode. So if you didn't take notes, don't worry. I have all the actions laid out and exactly what you need to do next if you want to walk through what I shared today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.